The sun hung like molten copper over, baking the wooden storefronts until the air itself seemed to shimmer. Heat rolled off the hard-packed street in wavering sheets, carrying the smell of horse sweat, whiskey, and desert dust. It was near midday when the stranger rode in, tall in the saddle, shoulders squared, hat brim low enough to hide his eyes. His name was Cole Mercer, though nobody in town knew it yet. What they did know was the look of a man who had traveled far and trusted few. His boots hit the ground with a dull thud as he dismounted, spurs chiming softly with each step toward the Silver Spur Saloon. Conversations thinned to murmurs. In a place like Tombstone, new faces meant trouble, or money, and often both. Cole tied his reins to the hitching post with steady hands, the leather reins creaking under his grip. Across the street stood Nehemina, an Apache woman with a quiet strength about her. She wasn't dressed like the townswomen in lace and parasols, she wore buckskin and carried herself like someone who belonged to the land rather than the buildings that now scarred it. Her sharp gaze followed the cowboy's every movement. She noticed what others didn't, the slight stiffness in his shoulders, the way his right hand hovered close to his holster even when he seemed relaxed. Cole had just turned from his horse when Nehemina's expression changed. Her eyes dropped, then widened. "Cowboy," she shouted, her voice cutting through the heat-thick air. "What's that rattlesnake doing between your legs?" The street went dead silent. Cole froze. Slowly, carefully, he lowered his gaze. There, half hidden in the dusty folds of his leather chaps, a thick western diamondback rattler lay coiled. Its patterned scales blended almost perfectly with the earth-toned leather. The tail buzzed once, a dry, chilling rattle that seemed louder than a gunshot. A bead of sweat slid down Cole's temple, but he didn't dare lift a hand to wipe it away. The snake's head rose slightly, black tongue flicking as it tasted the air. The slightest twitch could mean venom in his thigh and death before sundown. No one moved. No one breathed. Even the desert wind seemed to hold back, waiting to see whether the stranger in Tombstone would prove himself steady, or end up another grave on Boot Hill. The rattlesnake's rattle grew louder, a dry, relentless buzz that scraped against the nerves of everyone standing on the street of. Cole Mercer could feel the vibration through his chaps, a faint trembling against his thigh that made every muscle in his body scream to move. But he didn't. He stood as still as a fence post, boots planted in the dust, fingers hovering inches from his gun but knowing it was useless against something already coiled so close. Sweat trickled down his spine beneath his shirt, soaking into the waistband of his trousers. The sun beat down mercilessly, and the heat seemed to thicken the air between him and the snake. Its head lifted higher now, diamond-patterned scales glinting faintly. The black fork of its tongue flicked out, tasting fear, leather, and the faint scent of horse. "Don't breathe so hard," Nehemina said as she stepped off the boardwalk and into the street. Her voice was calm, steady, like she was commenting on the weather instead of staring down a venomous strike. "It feels the thunder in your chest." Cole's jaw tightened. "I ain't exactly in control of that," he muttered, barely parting his lips. She moved closer, ignoring the sharp whispers from townsfolk who thought her crazy for approaching. Kneeling slowly, she kept her eyes on the snake, not on the man towering above her. "You fight it," she said quietly. "That is why it stays ready. You are both waiting for the other to make a mistake." The rattler shifted slightly, tightening its coil for a heartbeat before easing again. The movement made Cole's pulse hammer harder, but he forced himself to focus on Nehemina's voice instead of the deadly weight brushing his leg. From the saloon doorway, unseen by Cole but not by Nehemina, the Grayson brothers watched with dark amusement. They had tracked Cole across miles of desert, and now fate had pinned him in place without them firing a single shot. "Well, I'll be," one of them drawled under his breath. "Snake's got him trussed up better than rope." Nehemina reached slowly toward a small leather pouch at her belt. Every motion was deliberate, careful not to alarm the rattler. She loosened the drawstring and let a pinch of crushed desert herbs fall into her palm. The scent drifted upward, sharp and bitter, cutting through the smell of dust and sweat. The snake's tongue flicked again, faster now. Easy, she whispered, not to Cole, but to the creature itself. For one fragile moment, time stretched thin as spider silk, balanced between venom and survival. The first gunshot cracked through the blazing afternoon like a lightning strike splitting dry timber. For a split second, no one understood what had happened, only that the fragile stillness in the street had shattered beyond repair. Nehemina moved before the echo faded. She lunged forward and slammed both hands into Cole's chest, knocking him backward just as the rattlesnake struck. Its fangs snapped through empty air where his leg had been a heartbeat earlier. Cole hit the dirt hard, the breath exploding from his lungs. Instinct took over. He rolled, dragging his revolver free in one smooth motion as another shot splintered the hitching post beside him. Wood shards sprayed across the dust. The Grayson brothers stepped off the saloon porch with guns drawn, boots heavy against the boards. They had chosen their moment well. A man tangled with a rattler was easy prey. But their easy kill had just turned complicated. Cole fired from the ground, the recoil jolting through his arm. His bullet tore through the brim of the eldest Grayson's hat, sending it spinning into the street. Townsfolk screamed and scattered, diving behind water barrels and ducking through doorways. A horse reared, jerking free from its reins and galloping down the road in blind panic. The rattlesnake, enraged by the sudden violence, coiled and struck again at the chaos around it. Nehemina grabbed a dented tin washbasin from beside the saloon and flung it with sharp precision. The metal clanged against the dirt near the snake, drawing its attention away from Cole as it slithered furiously toward the quieter edge of the street. Another gunshot grazed Cole's shoulder, heat searing through fabric and skin. He gritted his teeth against the pain and pushed to one knee, steadying his aim. The second Grayson ducked behind a trough, firing wildly. Bullets chewed into the wooden storefront behind Cole, spraying splinters into the air. Nehemina stepped into the open with astonishing calm, bow already drawn. In one fluid motion, she released. The arrow streaked across the street and pinned the youngest brother's sleeve to a support post, trapping him with a startled shout. The sudden shift broke their nerve. Outgunned and humiliated, the remaining brothers retreated, firing once more before scrambling toward their horses. Within seconds, they were riding hard for the open desert of the Arizona Territory, leaving dust and wounded pride behind. Silence crept back slowly, thick and uneasy. Cole lowered his revolver, breathing hard, shoulder burning. The rattlesnake was gone. The outlaws were gone. But Tombstone would not forget the day death came twice, and left empty-handed. Evening settled gently over, cooling the scorched earth and washing the sky in streaks of crimson and violet. The violence of the afternoon felt distant now, like a bad dream fading with the daylight, yet the tension still clung to the town like dust on boots. Broken wood lay scattered along the street, a reminder of how close death had walked among them. Cole Mercer sat on the edge of the boardwalk outside the Silver Spur Saloon, his back resting against a support post. A strip of clean cloth was tied tight around his shoulder where the bullet had grazed him. The wound burned, but he'd had worse. What lingered more than pain was the memory of the rattlesnake's weight and the cold certainty that he could have died without ever drawing his gun. He watched the sun dip toward the horizon, its last light glinting off the windows and turning them to molten gold. Footsteps approached softly. He didn't need to look up to know who it was. Nehemina stopped a few paces away, her silhouette outlined by the fading light. "You should let the doctor see that," she said, nodding toward his shoulder. "I've had enough folks pointing things at me for one day," Cole replied dryly. "Figure I'll take my chances." A faint hint of amusement touched her eyes, but it didn't last long. She studied him in silence, as though weighing something heavier than words. "The Grayson brothers will not forget this," she said. "Men like that carry their anger like a badge." Cole exhaled slowly. "They were hunting me long before today. I testified against them back in Santa Fe. Figured I could outrun the rest." He paused, gaze drifting to the darkening hills beyond town. "Turns out the past rides faster than a good horse." Nehemina stepped closer, leaning lightly against a post opposite him. The desert remembers every footprint, she said quietly. You cannot outrun what you refuse to face. He considered that, rolling the thought around in his mind. Maybe, he admitted. But I reckon I'd be dead if you hadn't stepped in. You did not panic, she answered. That saved you as much as I did. For a moment, neither spoke. The town's usual noise began to return, piano music drifting from inside the saloon, low conversation, the clink of glasses. Life moving forward as it always did. Cole finally tipped his hat toward her. Next time a snake decides to get friendly, I'll be sure you're within shouting distance. This time, she allowed herself a small laugh, warm and low. Next time, she said, turning to leave, watch where you stand. As darkness claimed Tombstone and stars scattered across the wide desert sky, an unspoken understanding lingered between them, tempered by danger, forged by survival, and steady as the land beneath their boots.